And as promised, we have a social experiment for you. We're going to talk about how to avoid the death of your best ideas in this video. But we're going to kick off things with the promised social experiment. So imagine that just 3 years ago, a stock market crash created the worst economic depression of your lifetime. You and many others now find yourselves without a way to purchase basic necessities like food and clothing. You're frustrated. You don't know what to do. The children living in your region are suffering the worst. Thousands under the age of 12 have already died from malnutrition and other hunger-related diseases. The main cause of this suffering is unemployment. 6 million people are searching and praying for a way to provide for their families. And one of your only options, one of the only ways out of this entire situation is to participate in the debates, participate in the protests, and participate in the upcoming presidential election. So imagine you're in that situation. The presidential elections are coming up. There's exactly 3 candidates for you to choose from. And as part of this experiment, you're going to choose which one you're going to vote for. It's going to be option 1, 2, or 3. Candidate number 1, his name is Paul. He's an older gentleman. And he's the current president. He has been the current president for the past 7 years, actually. He's an okay choice, but he is partially to blame for the lack of economic change. Since a stock market crash that happened, since the stock market crash, he is part of the blame. He tried hard for the past 3 years to have politicians agree and for there to be changes and to try to improve the economy, but little has been done. He's also 84 years old. He was actually planning on retiring, but he decided he should run for president again because he loves his country and he does not want to see Adolf become the next president. Who's Adolf? Well, Adolf is your second choice. He's the second choice for president. Adolf is a great speaker and a natural leader who has many new ideas for change. He wants to make the country self-sustaining. And he wants to eradicate threats of communism, because people have been talking about the fact that, oh, maybe we should switch to a communist country. But he wants to eradicate those ideas. But he often uses hateful language, especially towards minorities, which he believes are partially to blame for your country's poor economic situations. Okay, so candidate number 3. Okay, let's have one more choice. Here we go. His name is Ernst. He also has some big ideas for change. The problem is that many fear his ideas are a bit too far left and radical. Many people fear that his ideas would actually bring too much change. Why? Because he is in favor of much more government control and laws that distribute wealth and equality to all those living in your country. He wants the government to control all businesses, but he also sees it as a way to end poverty. Here's a quick recap of your 3 choices. Paul, he's the current president who promises to continue to work with the politicians. He's going to try to fix things. He's going to try to fix the economic crisis, but up until now, not much has been done. Candidate number 2 is Adolf, the man with new ideas for change, but that at times uses hateful speech towards minorities. And then candidate number 3 is Ernst, the communist. Yep, that's right. He's a communist with far left views who promises to end poverty, but who also plans to give the government more control over the people and business. So here we go. You got to vote. Election day has come. You need change. Remember your economic situation. 6 million people without a job. Endless lines of people waiting for work. People starving. Okay? Who do you vote for based on the information provided? Do you vote for Paul? Do you vote for Adolf? Or do you vote for Ernst? Once you have made your choice, you can continue the video. Okay, I want you to mentally pick Paul, Adolf, Ernst. Paul, Adolf, Ernst. Give you 5 more seconds to choose. All right. Now, how's that for an experience? All right. So, how's that for a video? And congratulations. Okay. Now you get to understand what all this was all about. What does this have to do with ideas that influence? Well, you just participated in a social experiment that Pedro and I created and ran in 3 different countries: the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany. And in each country, we asked 200 participants to also pick one of the 3 candidates. The goal of the experiment was to see what percentage of people in each of the 3 countries would vote for Hitler. What? That's right. You heard correctly. We were trying to see if you would vote for Hitler in our social experiment. We wanted to see who would vote for Adolf, representing Adolf Hitler, during our experiment, which attempted to give an accurate historical representation of Adolf Hitler before he became the dictator of Germany. You see, Adolf Hitler, he ran for president during the 1932 German presidential election. Lots of people don't realize that. He actually ran for president. Before becoming a dictator, he tried to legally get elected. His opponents were Paul Hindenburg, okay? Paul Hindenburg, he was the former president, right? And Ernst Thälmann. Paul was the president who decided to run for re-election because of Adolf, okay? He didn't think Adolf would do a great job. He was a little bit scared about Adolf, so he decided to run again, even though he was so old. Ernst ran as the leader of the Communist Party of Germany. And the results of the experiment are as followed. 20% of participants in the United States voted for Adolf. 18% of participants in the United Kingdom voted for Adolf. And in Germany, only 11% of participants voted for Adolf. Now, these results prove Pedro and I's original hypothesis that the number of votes for Adolf vary by country, and that Germany is probably the country least likely to vote for Adolf based off of everything that we were putting together, because it would be fresher on their minds, and they would kind of see, oh yeah, we kind of made that mistake before, right? So if for some reason during the experiment you were frustrated, angry, or emotionally divided because of the 3 choices provided, then you are not alone. Some people wrote that they would vote for no one, okay? We had other participants write-in votes for Chuck Norris and Barack Obama. A total of 5% of our participants refused to choose one of the 3 candidates. One participant told us that they would find another country to live in. And a different individual summed up the conflict by stating, inaction does nothing, hate achieve nothing. Communism has never made any state rich or eradicated poverty, so I would never endorse E, but would hope for a star to appear. And one person said, neither. This is an extreme case of reality. An extreme case of reality. Well, guess what? There's only one problem with that last statement. The entire experiment was designed to mimic the 1932 presidential election in Germany. And for Germany, what you experienced in this social experiment right now was reality. Paul von Hindenburg's main motive for running for re-election was to stop Adolf Hitler from winning. Adolf Hitler represented the Nazi party. It wasn't a secret party. It was openly the Nazi party. Everybody knew it was Adolf Hitler and the Nazi party. The Nazi party and Hitler openly blamed the Jews for the economic situation and heavily opposed communism. And Ernst Thälmann preached that the solution to Germany's economic problems was communism. Okay? So, that's the situation that we were put in. And to add fuel to the political fire, Germany was suffering because of the Great Depression. Yes, that's right. The 1929 U.S. stock market crash that started the Great Depression didn't just affect the United States. It affected the entire world. And Germany was one of the countries most affected because American banks immediately withdrew loans that were made to Germany once the stock market crashed. Along with the huge unemployment, this caused mass inflation. And have you ever heard the story about when German marks had so little value that at one point people had to trade wheelbarrows full of money just to buy a loaf of bread? Well, apparently it's true. You've heard the rumors. This is the time period that people are referring to. As you can see, during the 1932 election, Germany was in desperate need of a star, but from the 67 million people living in Germany at the time, the three ideologies that made it to the ballots were those of Paul, Adolf, and Ernst. Any thoughts, Pedro?
It never ceases to amaze me how we as human beings are always looking for a savior, always looking for someone that will come down and save us and fix everything for us, you know? President after president, or, you know, just someone that we know that it's in a leadership position, we always expect someone to come and solve the problems, right? And fix things. And that's how we are wired, and that has happened over and over and over in different civilizations. So, and that can be very powerful, you know, they can be very scary and dangerous. So just by listening to your story, I had this whole movie going through my head and thinking, oh my goodness, can you imagine 67 million people wanting someone to come and take them out of that situation? Looks at how much potential power there is there. And if you have the right message, you can channel that desire to you.
Exactly.
So that's always impressive.
Yeah, it would have changed everything if somebody like you took the right idea with the right platform, gathered the right people back in 1932. It would have completely changed the world. The 1932 election results are as follows. This is what actually happened. Paul Hindenburg got 53% of the vote. Adolf Hitler got 37% of the vote. And Ernst Thälmann, he got 10% of the vote. Paul Hindenburg conceded to give Adolf Hitler the chancellor position. But Adolf Hitler, he wanted more. He used his new position to call for new elections. He created new laws, and he put together a secret police force. He threatened the lives of multiple politicians, and he quickly gained more political power than the president himself. More political power than President Hindenburg. Scary stuff. And then things took a turn for the worst, because on August 2nd, 1934, President Hindenburg died from lung cancer. Not good. This time, Adolf gained the support of the German armed forces when President Hindenburg died. And with the death of Paul Hindenburg, he was actually just handed the title of President of Germany. After a few weeks of being the president, along with being the chancellor, he decided to use the political power to abolish the office of president. And he declared himself Führer, a word which basically means top leader. He had that much political power that he voted himself into the position of Führer, aka dictator. Crazy stuff. During World War II, Hitler's Holocaust was responsible for killing 6 million Jewish men, women, and children. And in addition to that, 5 million non-Jewish people were also killed during the Holocaust, including many Soviets, Poles, and people with disabilities, and homosexuals. So, how did Hitler's power initially start to grow out of control? Well, instead of being chastised for his hateful speech towards Jews, he was initially encouraged, not by everybody, but by some. And he was ignored for his actions by many. Many thought he didn't really mean what he was saying. Oh, he's joking, okay? He doesn't really mean it. And most citizens never dreamed that Hitler, they honestly did not believe that Hitler would get to the point where he would commit the murders that he committed. Hitler's story shows how when corrupt ideas and actions are left unchecked, they can quickly grow out of control. And within a few years, it is possible to go from an economic depression to genocide. Scary. Very scary. But who's responsible? Okay? Who is responsible to make sure that the corrupt ideas and actions don't grow out of control. Well, in Germany, it was the people's responsibility. And in your industry, region, or organization, it's very much your responsibility. That's right. You're responsible. But thankfully, it's not just your responsibility. It's a responsibility that you can also share with others. Okay? You and the people you work with need to recognize and fight for the best ideas. Because when fundamentally flawed ideas are given encouragement, they have the power to destroy families, markets, and entire countries. So this means that if you care about your country, your business, your religion, your organization, or your movement, then you cannot afford, you can't sit back on the sidelines when bad ideas or even mediocre ideas trump and win over the best ideas. Okay? So Jesus said it in the Bible. He said it best. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. What was he saying? Well, basically, you need to be smart. You need to form opinions. You need to stand for something. Okay? Don't just be the middle ground. Don't just go with the flow. How many German citizens went with the flow instead of expressing their distress or uneasiness towards Hitler? There's a chance, okay? There's a big chance that during our social experiment that you also voted for or considered voting for Hitler. I don't want you to feel bad, okay? If you voted for Hitler, guess what? I talk to people all day, every day who they voted for Hitler, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I voted for Hitler in your social experiment. Guess what? Don't worry. The reason why you voted for Hitler is because you were presented with 3 really bad, undesirable options, and you needed to choose just one. If you go on the street and ask people if they would have voted for Hitler, 99% of them will tell you no, but our social experiment shows that when you are put in a bad situation, you frequently end up making bad choices because of a lack of good options. And just like in the past, when you may have voted for Hitler, today you are going through similar situations because it is common for you to be presented with mediocre and sometimes horrible options. But this doesn't happen just in politics. It happens every time you make a purchase. For example, take a look at your credit card statement. Each transaction you make is a vote. It's a vote to support the companies you buy from. Are you proud of those purchases? How many of the businesses do you and I buy from because you believe it's the lesser of 2 evils? Each purchase you make allows you to vote with your wallet, but lots of times we're voting for things with our wallet that we shouldn't honestly be voting for. You also vote with your attention. This is easy to see each time you go to watch content online. For example, look at your watch history. Go look at it. Look at your watch history on YouTube. Look at your watch history on Netflix. Okay? Are you proud of everything that you've been watching, that you've been supporting with your attention on YouTube and Netflix? Or are you ashamed of a few of your watching habits? Because you know deep down that you're watching what you believe to be the best of the worst. Does that make sense? You're watching the best, worst stuff out there. The worst stuff out there, okay, you'll let other people watch that. But the best, worst stuff out there, that's what you're watching. So for many people, the social experiment presented in this video, it hits a little bit too close to home. You have likely been in multiple situations in your life where your choices are between unacceptable, really bad, and horrible. So how can you effectively choose between unacceptable, really bad, and horrible? The answer is that you can't. So if in today's experiment you voted for Hitler, it's okay. If you had lived in Germany during the 1932 election, then there's a 37% chance that you too would have also voted for Hitler. So the question now is, how do you limit the amount of times where people's choices are between unacceptable, really bad, and horrible? What's the solution, Daniel? Okay, the answer is that you must avoid at all costs, first of all, being lukewarm with your ideas, okay? So no more vanilla, no more middle ground stuff, okay? We're gonna take you way outside of the box with your marketing message here in the Ideas That Influence course, okay? Nothing mediocre, nothing vanilla, nothing middle ground, nothing lukewarm. Also, you must help those that you work with to not be lukewarm, because this is actually a little bit harder. You watching this course, there's a good chance that you're not lukewarm with your ideas. But a lot of the people that you work with, it's a struggle to get those people to share their ideas. Some of them have amazing ideas, but they don't share them. So what would it have taken to beat Hitler? Well, the answer is just one winning idea. One winning idea that put Hitler's ideas to shame. One idea from the 67 million people that put Hitler's ideas to shame. So when you or somebody you know has a great idea, you can't let that idea die. You can no longer afford to sit on the sidelines. Okay, you have to step up. We have 3 quick little tips so that you can help nurture your best ideas and the ideas of those around you. The first thing is to study. So part of avoiding being lukewarm is to actually, go down the route of mastery. Try to be the person that understands your market way better than your customers and even better than your competition. So study. Also, listen. Anybody on your team can have the best idea. You can be the one that has that idea, but there's a lot of people on your team that are shy, that aren't speaking up, and they are the ones that might have that best idea. So also fight for the best ideas. If you know that a mediocre or a bad idea has the power to destroy your business, take a stand. I love this picture right here. 2 of my UFC favorites. If you've ever seen this fight, it's one of the most famous UFC fights of all time. Everybody was standing up applauding because they just fought tooth and nail, and they were not going down. And before the fight happened, they had some really nasty words for each other, but by the end of the fight, they respected each other so much because they went out there and they gave it their best. They gave their all, and they fought as hard as they could. Okay, so we want you to also fight. Go out, fight for the best ideas.
Yeah, they were all in. Think about that. Think about how you need to fight for your idea. If your idea represents who you are, giving up on your idea is giving up on who you are, and you're not going to do that. It's part of the process. And as Daniel was saying, after the fight, people that were actually throwing rocks at you are going to respect you because you didn't give up.
Yeah, before the fight happened, I was like, man, Conor McGregor, he was just a punk. And I was all for Nate Diaz. He will trash talk you just as bad as Conor McGregor will. But then you watch the fight and, oh my gosh, it's just like, wow. Like, okay, now I love both of you guys because you fought so hard, and you just gotta go out there. You gotta give it all your all. So fight. So you're gonna study, okay? You're gonna listen, and you're gonna fight for the best ideas. And you have to take this mindset, because if you don't, then Hitler-like ideas can win in your market. And that's what we're trying to avoid, those Hitler-like ideas from breaking through when there are much better ideas like yours that can change the world in a more impactful way for the positive. In Susan Cain's book, Quiet, The Power of Introverts, in a world that can't stop talking, she talked about the fact that it's not about charisma. She said that there's zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas. And Hitler was possibly the biggest proof of Susan's quote. He was a man who was great at speaking, but he had some good ideas and so many horrible ideas that it should have disqualified him from the presidency. Somebody easily should have been able to come in and put Hitler's ideas to shame. Okay? So let's fight for those best ideas. An additional study that shows how organizations become more effective when all the best ideas are shared, because they studied 2,000 CEOs over a 10-year period, and they found that the most effective CEOs were usually introverts. So on average, the more introverted CEOs were better. And the reason why was simple. The more introverted CEOs, they sit back and they listen more to their team. So when it comes to synergy, if you have a CEO that's charismatic and who doesn't listen to everybody and he's the dictator, okay? You see where I'm going here with that? If you have the CEO that's the dictator, then you only have the ideas from one person. But if you have the ideas from everybody, if you have that introverted CEO that sits back and that listens and that gathers the best ideas and that helps the team execute on the best ideas, then those CEOs go much further faster because of the synergy on their team. Because when it comes to synergy, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 can equal 3, 5, 10, 50, 100. Okay? So the introverted CEOs are much better at generating that synergy simply because they listen. Now, if you're extroverted, that doesn't mean you should stop listening to the course. It means that you need to just simply listen and encourage team members to also share their best ideas, because sometimes it's you that will have the best idea, but oftentimes it's not you. Oftentimes it is somebody on your team, and they need you to help facilitate the voice behind that winning idea. So let's help everyone express their winning and differentiated ideas. These are the first steps for finding your best ideas that will break through the clutter. Let's sum things up with this one sentence. I want you to take away this one big lesson from this video. Write this down, post it to your wall. Great ideas die daily when individuals are lukewarm or keep their ideas to themselves. This is the first step. That synergy, that brainstorming, the ideas from everybody, gathering them together. This is the first step in order to find and pinpoint those best winning ideas that will break through the marketing clutter. So let's overcome this, and then we'll get into the process of creating your winning message. To finish this video, I have a few quick questions. What ideas have you kept to yourself in the past that could have made a difference? What steps do you need to take to avoid becoming lukewarm and to avoid keeping your ideas to yourself? And what brainstorming processes should you implement to help those that you work with better share those ideas? Okay, so think about these ideas, work with your team, get them all on board, because with the help and synergy and collaboration from your team, you will be able to better find your idea that breaks through the marketing clutter. And we'll see you in the next video. All right. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Marketing Podcast Party. Please share this episode with your friends, family, and business partners. Also, remember that the party continues with your free copy of the Ideas That Influence book and interactive box experience. I wrote the book and created the box experience to help you with even more wildly successful marketing ideas. Head on over to bigideasbox.com to grab your copy. You'll get your copy for free. You just pay shipping and handling. Once again, that's bigideasbox.com for your free plus shipping copy of Ideas That Influence. I'm Daniel Din. This is the Marketing Podcast Party, and I'll see you in the next episode.